Hey guys, welcome back to episode 38, part 2. Bad Biddie, Ivy League, Brands, and Ohana with my pretty dope guest, Crystal. You guys totally vibe with us on part 1, hearing her very inspiring and motivational story. And I hope to touch your soul, your hearts, and your spirit so we can make a difference, especially in these trying times. You never know who's going through what. So, thank you for tuning in and enjoy the rest of the story and the show.
And I was like, wow, because everything was like angry. I'm angry. I'm from 0 to 100. Like I'm angry. And it was super helpful to have that years later. I wish I had it early, and I wish for the kids to have that. They need that. They need even like friends and families, like what you're doing for the friend giving an extra sandwich. Like I had teachers who were so in tune with the emotional well-being of their children. Like I told you, I shared with you, a teacher bought me a winter coat, right? Like,
Yes.
everyone has these brands, and my sister, God bless her, I love her, she protected me, and she's like, I'm gonna get you a coat. She wasn't going to get me the fanciest coat. She got me an Old Navy coat, but at least I wasn't being picked on,
Mm-hmm.
because I had an Old Navy coat, right? Old
Mm-hmm.
Navy was right after the Gap, right?
Right,
so
right.
so it was like,
There's levels to this, right?
levels to the freshness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had the Old Navy coat, and it was in the 6th grade. It was my homeroom teacher, Miss Arundel. I will never forget her. She was like, Crystal, stay after class. And my friends was like, Crystal, do you want to wait? Do you want me to wait? And I'm like, yes, please, because I didn't want to walk all the way up Allerton by myself. So they waited for me outside of the school, and I sat there, and she's like, you're doing so well, and I see you, and I see everyone in the school, all the popular girls are wearing this one jacket. She's like, the diamond North Face. I'm like, yeah, everyone wears that coat. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, so she pulls out the bag with the tags, and she's like, I want to give you this diamond North Face. Like, you deserve to have this.
Mm-hmm.
And I cried, right? Because it was like, wow, like you're helping. Like you are protecting, right? Bullying is a real thing. Bullying didn't affect me because I was going through so much in the home. So I remember being bullied, but it didn't impact me, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
was like, whatever, like you corny. Like
Right.
I don't care. Like make fun of me. Make fun of me that I don't have name brand. Like
Right.
I'm going through so much in the home. Like my mom gave up her rights. I was never going back home. So I
Mm-hmm.
was in that survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
So all the bullying I experienced because of the lack of brand didn't really phase me.
Mm-hmm.
So she gave me that winter coat, and I was like, I don't know if I could. And she probably saw me being picked on. I just don't remember, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember because those were things that weren't really you're in a flight or fight mode.
Mm-hmm.
So if it doesn't really rev up your adrenaline system, you're not really recalling. I don't have that flashbulb memory, but I do have the flashbulb memory of her giving me the coat, and I told her, I was like, oh my god, like if I bring this coat home, my foster mother's gonna think I'm selling my ass, right? Like I was like, you have to tell her you got me this coat. Like she's gonna be like, who the hell got you this coat? And that's when you're starting to like guys, and boys are starting to. I was like, finally, I thought I was like the most unattractive girl, and then guys were like, you're so beautiful, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm attractive, okay. So I was like, I don't want her to think I'm like, messing with this little sugar daddy or something. So she called my foster mom, and she told her, she's like, I got Crystal this winter coat, and I want, like, she's coming home with the winter coat. I want you to know I kept her a little bit after school, and I gave it to her. But I've definitely been blessed to have these guardian angels in the form of my teachers,
Mm-hmm.
guide me. So not just my 6th grade teacher, my 5th grade teacher, who really, I was behind in reading, didn't know how to read, didn't know how to do math. I was just like, I was going in and out of foster care, so my education system wasn't the stablest, and I was hooked on phonics.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, Daisy, I did not know how to read until the 5th grade. I don't know
Wow.
how I progressed. I progressed though. I
But you did
advanced to
it.
the next level
Right.
by the minimum state level, and like my 5th grade teacher kind of really, she believed in me. Like she paid for all my trips. Like she knew my foster mother wasn't going to pay for it, and I didn't want to tell her. It was so shameful, like I told you, to say I live in a foster home and she's not going to pay for my trips, or the state is not going to give her money to pay for my trips. So she would go through everyone's permission slip, and everyone who didn't have a slip or didn't pay for the trip would have to go to another class. And people would be like, Crystal, I saw you didn't bring in a permission slip. Are you staying behind? And then my teacher would look at me, and she'd be like, shh, like, don't respond. Because, like, she would be like, you're staying. Like, you're going on this trip, and she would cover the expenses. Like, I didn't have lunch. She would slide me as we're walking to the train, the 5 train on Gun Hill. She'd call me Mrs. Campbell, Mrs. Sherry Campbell. And she would call me back, and she would say, Crystal, come here. She'll slide me $10, and she'll say, run ahead of the group, go into the store, buy your sandwich, and come back out. So no one knew that she was paying for all of my trips and paying for all of my lunch, for every lunch, for every trip. And I was just like, I don't understand why she thinks I deserve this, right? And she would sit there and she'd be like, you're very smart and you're going to be an indomitable force, basically. And I was just like, wow, like, okay. And like, I read that autograph book over and over for the whole summer. Like, okay, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm intelligent. Like, I just kept, it was these affirmations. Like, she gave me these affirmations to read over and over again. And by another blessing of my second oldest sister, she took me to the library every day, because she's like, I'm not leaving you in the foster home. I don't know what's going to happen when I go to work for 8 hours a day. She's like, so the whole summer, you're going to come with me. And you're going to sit in the library, and you're going to wait till I'm done, and then we'll go home together. And that whole summer I spent reading, and I like improved my reading level. And I'm like, I read every book. And she was like, well, there's more downstairs. Go downstairs. It was like the toughest love. And it was that summer right after the 5th grade. And I think those affirmations sitting in the library, it all pieced together. Yeah. And I became this force. Like by 6, 7, 8, I was like, high honors, you know?
So, and I want to highlight that too. I happen to know this, and not that you would need to, like, you know, tell every single person of my listeners like how exactly those exams went, but you were very on the high level. It was advanced placement, it was extra credits. You really mobilize yourself on a faster pace just so you could meet certain deadlines, and you could be a part of certain programs to essentially prepare yourself for what you were working towards with college and which route you were going to go and what decisions you were going to make and the career you were going to choose. So I wanted this to be highlighted, and yes, in a sense, I wanted what your story really is and that piece of the struggle, because I cannot tell you in my demographics, I have, you know, teenagers who are at home right now listening like by the hundreds, but I do see certain demographics, and I do know I do have a certain age range that this could be impactful for. Or they might have foster siblings, or they might have actual siblings who are in foster care, or there are probably people in our age group who are foster parents. Yes. And so this is why I wanted to bring this to the table too, because I do feel that there's ways we can do things, even if it is to be, to your point, vigilant and be aware. So for me as a parent who is having a child who's completely remote learning, I do still, like, when I'm home on a day off and I see him in remote, I do still worry in a sense of how everyone else is doing, because I know who his friends are, and I know the majority of their parents, and I do know how they were doing when we were dropped them off at school, and everybody would say hi and everything seemed to be perfectly fine. But then how are they doing now? You know, I cannot tell you I have confirmed that anybody is in foster care, but I also have not asked. It's none of my business. But when you do hear certain stories, sometimes it has to resonate with you. You have to sometimes think, hold up a second, like, what's going on? Is everything okay? You know what I mean? Yes. And still be respectful on it. The bullying piece, I can totally understand how, to your point, it's like, it's on a different level for a child growing up in foster care.
It's like, yeah.
It's on a totally different level. I definitely experienced some sort of bullying, but I cannot tell you there was a sense of feeling shame or even guilt. You know, it's just like your regular type of bullying.
Yeah.
You know,
when you're going through something.
When you're going through that, it's different.
Because my story is different. Like, I lived in foster homes where kids were molested. Like, and I'm their, I'm another fellow foster child in the same home. And when what we're going through in the school, whatever people are saying, it faze us, right? It's like, it's a non-factor at that point. It became a factor in high school, you know, when it's like, all right, now I'm being tested, right? Everyone's trying to check off a notch because they're trying to see how many people they can beat up, and it boosts their reputation. So that, I mean, we could talk about that later, but like that defending myself and being that hyper vigilant person, like, yeah, my sister taught me how to fight. She taught me how to fight early on when I was like, I saw them fight. Both of my sisters tag team guys. So I know what it's like to have to really stick up for myself. Yeah. But when I was younger, because I don't want to say it just yet. I eventually want to disclose it like in a book or hopefully. Of course. But what I was going through with my mom, it was just so much more harder. Right. Like than what you're saying about my brands. Like it didn't matter, right? At that point in the 4th or 5th grade, like everything that's going on in my life is like falling apart. And so, but in high school, it was like I was buying my own things. I was independent, making my own money. But with regard to what you were saying in the beginning, prior to you talking about, when you were talking about being, you said hyper vigilant and you said just vouching for yourself. Yes. I didn't know if you wanted me to talk on like how, I know you said you may have people who are in the foster care system, and sometimes it requires a parent to sit down with a foster child, like, do you understand what's going on? Right? Like, do you know why you're here? Do you know what's available to you? Right? The system doesn't even know what's available to children. My lawyer was the most baddest like lawyer, family court lawyer I could ever have. She was like, you are the child of the government, and the government's going to pay for everything you need. She got me everything covered. Like all like expenses, like ring, cap and gown, senior trip, everything. In college, she made sure I got my ring, cap and gown. Everything was paid for. A laptop was paid for. So she's like, how do they expect you? How do they expect the foster parent to give you this money if they're making this much and then they're covering this cost? So I did have to learn to advocate for myself and taking the advanced placement, like being in an advanced course, I sat there in high school and I was just like, I know this math and I don't need to be in math A or B. I can be the final group for sequential. And I had taught myself, because my foster brother gave me this textbook, I taught myself logic and I taught myself sequential math. And I sat there that summer reading the textbook. And I went into high school and I was like, I don't need to be in this math. I need to be in this math. And they were like, Crystal, you have no track record of having taken these courses. And they didn't know I taught myself this. And I was like, I promise you I know this material. Let me sit for the exams. Give me the exams that Mr. Carter's giving his class. And if I don't pass with a 90 and above, then I don't take the Regents and you don't advance me and I'll stay in math A or B. But if I pass 3 exams, then you let me sit for the Regents. And then we'll talk about how to move forward. So I passed all of them with like 98, 99, 100. And they were like, okay, Krista, you know the material. You're going to take the Regents, passed it with a 98. Because I graduated with high Regents. And then they were like, okay, fine. We're pushing you up to this class, to this math group. And you'll be advanced. And you still have to take this course. So I was like a freshman. It was my second term of freshman year. And they were like, you still need this class. So I was taking PM classes with seniors. Because it was seniors who had to make up the class, but I was just trying to get the credit.
She's like, y'all trying to make
I was just trying to get it on my transcript to show proof, like, all right, because I took the Regents before I took class. So I don't know what it is, right? Imagine a foster child being in this system, moving from place to place. You do eventually learn how to hone that voice and advocate for yourself. And I look back and it's like, I don't know what made me go into my principal's office and say I need to be advanced, right? Like, and for them to believe in me and for me to actually petition, like, let me sit for these exams. They're about to take an exam. Let me sit for the exam and let me show you I can pass this material. Like, I can take this class. And yeah, I really thank my high school for listening to me and really giving me that space to be like, all right, I'm going to listen to you. If you pass these exams, we'll let you sit for the Regents and do everything else. So it requires a lot. And if foster children are listening, it's like I don't know how to say it. It's so easier said than done. But when you're in it, it's like you can't imagine the light. You're imagining like the next year. You can't imagine so far out into the future because everything is happens so rapidly. I can move so quickly. I can move to another borough so quickly, depending on whose foster home is available to take in a teenager, right?
Right.
And it's like, I could have been in the projects. Like I could have been in a group home. Like, how many foster parents were so sick of me not bonding with them that when I had to be turned in, they were like, send her ass to the group home. And I was like my social worker would be like, you know what she told me? And I'm like, what? They were so cool. They was like, she really wants us to put you in a group home. And I was like, and if you put me in a group home, I'm coming back to her and I'm gonna fuck her up. She's like, Crystal, we're not putting you in a group home. We're gonna find a house. I was like, I want a house. And I knew what projects was like because my siblings grew up in projects. And I was like, yo, I'm gonna fight every day. Like, I was fighting in high school, but it was like, yo, like,
yeah,
my sisters are like, you think my voice is a little bass? My sisters got mad bass.
Mad bass. But that's essentially your survival. That's essentially what you went into. That was your survival mode. And you mentioned something which is actually perfect to go into the second segment. And even though it's not really precisely to the story, but it is a higher level of struggle, right? That some foster children do face. So essentially, what I would like my listeners to take from this, again, if you are a foster parent or you have foster children that you know of, or your children know of them, or they're their classmates, or in the new times that we're in, please be mindful. Please be very vigilant and very observant of the situation without having to ask so many questions and letting them build up that trust with you. If there is a way you can help, please help the situation, because not all of them have access to certain things. Resources. Not all of them know how to advocate for themselves, especially in these trying times. So it's very important for them to know when they have support. And as we're going into the second segment of Double or Nothing, which is where we keep it on another dose, I'm going to title this The Numbers Don't Lie. Two things before we talk into this. One, I want to give a shout out to the people that I know that do happen to foster kids who I see are really good to their kids. And because I want to say this, Marcus has an amazing family from his father's side. And so I think it's very lucky to have that and to have people who do it with love. Yeah. Because there are people out there who do it with love, and I think it's beautiful. And if there is anyone out there who has thought of doing it, who has considered, take this episode and just know that there is a way to do it with love, genuinely from your soul, from your heart, from your spirit, to really give a child a home, and really break a lot of stigmas surrounding what foster care really is to some children growing up, to some adults that today reflect, and the difference we can make for them, essentially. You mentioned about, and this might hopefully someday go into a book written by Crystal, but, some children in foster care do get molested. Yes. I want to dive into, it was a show. Well, it was a series, documentary, the show Netflix. I don't think I ever really went into it in depth. Any of my episodes. No, I watched it. I mean, on any of my episodes. It's the documentary of the trials of Gabriel Fernandez on Netflix. Just a really brief, I'll probably link it for anyone who's interested. I don't even know if it's still on Netflix. It might still be. If it still is and you go to check it out, please be very prepared. Emotionally, it is very disturbing reality and story.
And true. Very true.
Essentially, he was murdered by his mother and her boyfriend, being abused by them. He was actually in the care of his uncle, I believe.
At one point.
Yeah.
Kinship foster home. Mm-hmm. And then his grandparents.
And then she went back. She went back and she got him. And then he just did not make it. And there's so much involved in there. There's the involvement of teachers. There's the involvement of social workers, caseworkers. There's just so much police officers.
Mandated reporters in general, in so many areas, in so many specialties.
Yes, there's a lot involved. I wanted to shine light on one of the things. So before we go deep into it, I wanted to read something. One of my friends, she posted a picture the other day, and it was crazy. I was like, I'm actually going to dive into this a little bit. And she put that this was a goal of mine. Shout out to Iman. It says, okay, now that we're done with that map, meaning the map of the elections, let's fix this map. #FosterKidsMatter. #SaveOurChildren. And then at the top, it says children waiting to get adopted in the United States. And this is what it looks like. I'm showing Crystal right now, and I'm probably going to post this.
Wow.
Okay. And you see the different colors.
And the darker the hue,
so like there's some states in the country, and I'm probably going to post this, where there's like 2,000 to 3,000 or 3,100 in need of foster homes, right? And here in New York City alone, as of this moment, there are about 8,300 children in foster care in New York City. Of these children, about 2,500 are waiting for adoptive families.
Wow.
Okay. I want to go a little bit into just to give insight on the documentary itself. In that case, like the difference between the foster care and the kingship, as you described it.
Yes.
If you don't mind.
So kinship is a relative can go into just get into the foster care system. They may or may not have to do 1 or 2 training courses, and to really like get them to understand what the system will offer them in supporting of raising this child, their relative, and then foster care is just a complete stranger that has opted to help these kids in need, and they go through an intensive course training. I don't know how long. Sometimes they finesse it. I've had a few friends. I did another post because when I was leaving Tenbrook Avenue, I didn't want to leave Tenbrook. It was such a good place for me, and I had so many friends. So my best friend Noelle, who lived across the street, she's like, "What can we do?" And she was like, "Maybe my mom can help." And her mom was a nurse at the time, is a nurse, and a registered nurse, but in kinships it's a sibling, and it's interesting because that was one of the issues with where my family has a lot of rift between us and a lot of drama. My mom comes from a family of 14, and my dad is Guyanese and he's in Jamaica, Queens, and he has siblings of his own, but no one really opted to take us in. And my mom had 12 kids in total. At the time when she lost her parental rights, we were 10. The last 2 didn't come till later, so no one really opted for that. Where in what you see in the Netflix series is his homosexual uncle comes in, wants kids. Yes. Him and his partner wants kids, and they come in and they ask to be like certified foster parents to take care of their Gabriel. And it was just it's a little uneasy looking back, but I'm very happy I grew up in this system. I don't think it's the best thing for all of my siblings. I can't say it was the best outcome, but for me, it worked to my benefit, and it helped that I wasn't in a family situation, home, like kinship home. It worked for me that I wasn't in a kinship home, and it worked for me that I was rather in a foster home, and I got all my needs met because I became very independent, right? Like I felt like if I went into a kinship home, they would expose me to my mother. And like I told you before our conversation, like sometimes you need to build this wall. Like we need to not have this bond anymore because you are living your life and I need to live my life. Right. So my sister did get to live with her aunts. So they left me for a little bit, and I was so heartbroken because my sisters protected me. Like my older sisters, I'm the 3rd oldest female, the 4th oldest child, and my 2 older sisters, my oldest sister mostly fought all of our battles, like every single one of them, even with my mom. So when they left, I was like, damn, like I'm the oldest female now, right? If they don't come back, and like I prayed so hard, and I was like, yo, Jesus is on my side, because I was praying for so many things, and I was like, they need to come back to me because I can't be like I wasn't ready to take care of my younger siblings. Like I was in the 3rd grade, the 4th grade, and I was like, my sisters need to come back. So thankfully they went into that temporary kinship home with their aunt, and then when we came back to my mom, they came back too. So when we went into the system again, their aunt had to revisit that. And she eventually did later on, God bless her soul. And my sisters came back to me, so they were able to protect. Because it's difficult. I think what Gabriel had was a beautiful thing with his uncles. It's unfortunate that he was also bullied because I like I said, sometimes the system likes to place you in a similar setting to give you that role model experience. They fear that you'll lose touch with certain identities that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
So he was believed, like his mom and her boyfriend believed him for being homosexual.
Yep.
So it's like maybe he could have picked up a little bit of mannerisms, not to say he was. He could have picked up a few things, and then they ran with it and brutalized him until to the point he died. So that is the difference between kinships, and I think kinships can be a beautiful thing to keep you rooted with who you are, where you're from. I think if I had that mix of like that Guyanese and that Puerto Rican, like I would have been like, you know, really in tune with my culture and my cultural backgrounds, right? Because I'm more than one. I check off more than one box. But it didn't work out that way, and so now I relate to so many cultures, right? Because I grew up in so many different households. But that is the difference between foster home and kinship.
Yeah. I love that you highlighted a little bit of Gabriel's story. Because I wanted this part to also be a form of advocacy, especially to those in authority, those who are still handling some of these cases. Teachers, these kids are home. They're about to be home remotely again. Here in New York, at the time of recording, we're on limbo at 2.8% of infection rate. So once it hits 3.0, we're going strictly virtual for these children. And I wanted this to be out there and to indicate the difference, because a lot of the time, yes, with kingship, there is a beautiful setting, right? But sometimes that may not always be the case.
I know.
And especially when sometimes it's not always the case when they go back to their biological parent, and then there could be a horrific ending, right? And so essentially what this is about is, again, to the point of vigilance, to all the school system professionals, to
mandated
all of you
reporters.
Yes, mandated reporters, please don't just get too comfortable with certain things or what the child is saying, to the point that we said before. When they feel comfortable and they trust you, they share a lot more, but that's not always the case. And so a lot of the times, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are a lot of children who will protect their own parent.
Yes,
or
they will lie.
They will lie.
How many times we've been told, say this when they ask this, say this.
Right. And I mean, listen, my mom taught me how to not talk shit.
You fell, all right?
I fell. But here's the thing, okay? This is so terrible, and I hope like, I can honestly say, like, in all the years, right, and not too many, right? Although I did deserve to get slapped a few times because I had a fast as hell mouth. Let me just say that, okay? Like, I deserved it. Y'all heard what I did when I was 11, 12, and 13. I deserve to get beat. But here's the thing. I still knew, like, my mom loved me. And then I do feel that there are some instances where children will probably sit there and question, well, does she love me? Like, is this it's more than just getting slapped across the face for talking back. You know, there's other behaviors. What Gabriel went through was not just a slap across the face. You know, he was brutalized, essentially. And I think for us as professionals, like, I work in healthcare, there's sometimes some patients we see that we have to be very vigilant on what's going on with their behavior and why are they talking too much and what's going on, you know. So if you're in the school system, or if you are in a doctor's office and now children are coming in for their physical and they're mostly home now.
Oh yeah, the doctors be scared. I worked with them. They're scared to report.
They're scared to report. I know this too. Having worked,
teachers are scared to report. Sure.
Yes.
I mean, they are scared. I've worked in Brooklyn, and I sat in these leadership meetings, and you hear these situations, and I'm still protective of my story. Like, I'm willing to share it with you here. I love what you're doing, but I never really shared with the people I worked with. Like, I grew up in the system, and I think it's super important for you to report. What my teachers did do when they did report was they sat me down, like, I did call. Like, I had to call because I fear for you. Like, and they would sit there like, did your mom come home? Like, is she not home? Like, and then, it's true. If you feel safe, if you feel like that they're out to do good, more good than harm,
right?
Because it is hurtful to be separated from your biological family,
right?
And it does have a lasting impact, and most of it negative than positive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that conversation, that preliminary conversation, does help if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to report, to
Mm-hmm.
just say, I want you to know, like, I want the best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And they did report, and like I said, like I said to you previously in our Zoom call, I was like, I worked in the HIV field,
Mm-hmm.
attending to their needs and social service needs for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there were many times where it was like heartbreaking, because it's like, wow, this is so reminiscent of what I've gone through. And you'll see a kid, and I will never forget this young man, and like, he wouldn't go to school. He'll wait in the hallway for his mom. Like, he was trying to block her
Mm-hmm.
from going out to running the streets. And what works for one will not work for the other. So what worked for me does not work for my siblings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was cut off. I really detached myself from my family.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the siblings I grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
and aside from the ones who I saw every now and then during our family visits, if they needed clothes, I'd give them my shoes, because I was working, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like getting myself all the gear, so I'd give it to them right away.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so you connect with these kids when you're working in certain situations. So my situation is the HIV program, and
Mm-hmm.
and he was telling me, he's like, I don't want to go to school. And I'm like, well, why are you not going to school? He's like, I just can't. And like, I couldn't tell him, like, you have to let her go,
Right.
because you're not gonna make it. Like, she's struggling to really be the mother that you need her to be, and you're struggling as a young teenager, like the youngest. He was like on the, like, a newborn, like new to the teenage years, like probably 13. And I was like, he will not make it because he's chasing his mother. And I've seen that in my siblings, where I have a sibling who's chased my mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that has had a lasting traumatic effect on her.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard to connect, right? But you have to be on top of it. And I lost that case. Like, that case no longer came to the hospital. So, but you always think about it, like, damn, like, I wish I could have gotten you to realize, like, you have to let her go, because otherwise you're just gonna sink with her, right?
Absolutely.
And then it's like, and then sometimes you don't sink. Sometimes they come, but you don't. With these patients, and for 8 years, they don't really switch up until they hit rock bottom. And sometimes that rock bottom is not like the prettiest thing ever. Like, my mother's rock bottom was, so I didn't really talk to her for some time, just so I could do what I have to do for me. To hold that space for me. So when I graduated, they were like, your brother is going to be taken from her, the youngest one. I was like, would you take him? So it was going to be a kinship. So I was going to be his sister, but kinship home. I was going to be his guardian. And I was like, damn, I just graduated. I just got my own apartment. Like, I am free of this system, right? And I was like, do I want to be a mom, like a mom to my sibling, right? Basically. And I sat there, and I didn't want to. And I was like, Jesus, like, you have to help her. But I told them, I was like, if I have to, I will. And my dad, may he rest in peace, he was alive. He was like, if Crystal takes him, you will never see him. Because I was like one of the toughest ones of them all. Like, out of the girls, it was like, I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to share this. Like, it's like, I got to be happy. Like, I got to live my life.
Absolutely.
So he knew how I was, my dad, and he was like, if she takes him, you will never see him again. So somebody reported her, a mandated reporter reported her. The system reopened her case, and then when, may he rest in peace, when my dad passed away, she got her shit together. Because that was her rock bottom. Her safety net was no longer there to help her.
Wow.
So kids don't, when you're 13 or you're 12 and you're chasing behind your guardian to like be a guardian to you, to protect you, to help you, to be a parent, they're never going to probably wake up. They're chasing that high. So when he was doing that, I was like, I don't know how to connect with him. And the only way is when she hits rock bottom and she wakes up, or he wakes up before then, or he seeks that protection elsewhere in the streets. And that's the statistics you see with foster children, right? You need a protection. My mother, my sisters, when I lost that protection, I was like, shit, I got to learn how to fight now.
Today.
Like, today. Like, I got to get it like, popping now. So when you want the parent to protect you, because if anything happens, your parent's going to protect you. You want your siblings to protect you, because if anything's going to happen, my sisters are still one call away.
Right.
But when my sisters left, it was like, damn, I have to fight. So being a mandated reporter also requires protecting these kids. Like, if you see something, you say something. If you just, as a neighbor, as a friend,
Yes.
a friend's family, like, they need the protection, or else those statistics continue to rise with foster children seeking out protection from groups that are not the ideal groups that you want your kids or friends' kids to hang out with.
Absolutely.
Like, your kids' friends to hang out with. So, it's super important to just, like, step up to the plate, and if you can, and if anonymously do so, do it.
I agree 100%, because of what I know, because of what I've learned throughout the years. I joke and I always say, I'm nosy. I am nosy, but I tend to mind my business. I do tend to mind my business. However, when certain shit goes down in front of me, I have certain family members who will say, nah, step away. Don't call the cops. Don't do this. Don't do that. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. No problem. But what if? Right. And no, you will not see me to help a situation. First things first, to call the cops in those cases. But there is ways to report certain things for the vigilance. I'm going to be honest with you. It once happened in my home when Marcus was a baby, because of my stepchildren. And I understood why it was done to us. Very transparently, it's not anything we did. It was the other parent. And I don't want to give too much information on that. But my son was in that mix because they thought I was the mother.
Oh.
And so literally the threat was, we're taking him away. And my son was nothing but 6 months old. And I became like mama bear. Like, I'm fighting all you motherfuckers who come in here to fucking grab my kid. Like, first of all, you're going to learn your facts. Like, yes, they live with us, but this did not happen here. We weren't even aware. They just came back to us. Like it was like even a learning process for us at that moment, because we didn't realize certain things that were happening when they would go to the other parent's house.
I know. Oh.
But it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, now this involves my kid, because my kid is in this home. And so the report was done to my home, and they literally wanted to take him away from me. Wow. And so I had to go into a whole fighting mode, and to just defend my child, for one, still defend these kids, right? The point is that I know what it's like to be on the receiving end when somebody reports you, whether they knew the whole story or not.
They were doing their due
diligence. Yes. And it was at that moment that we realized how bad the situation was. That weekend, that moment when they went to the other parent's house, that we didn't quite realize, Yeah. And so it was a learning lesson. It was something we definitely learned. It was the moment that I learned just how serious a situation like this can get. Absolutely. Even when you do have your own children, it can get this serious. But it should be that way. If something is concerning,
yes, say something.
I cannot be angry at that teacher.
Yeah.
I can't be angry at her. She saw something, she had to say something.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. I appreciate highlighting this with you. We're going to go into the last segment of the show. It is called the OverDose. And so this is usually, I just revamped it. I did the OverDose segment this is where we go on a raw rant and all types of shit that might be pissing us off just in life, right? But I decided we might also just be indulging on something that keeps us very fucking happy too, right? It's an overdose either way. So before I say what I need to say, I wanted to know if there's anything you'd like to say, whether it pissed you off or something that has you absolutely elated. These days I'm using a lot of different words. I'm like immaculate, pristine, elated.
Good for you. That thesaurus is working.
Yes, I'm trying. Is there anything you would like to share
that's bringing me so much joy?
Or if it pissed you off? I mean, it's a safe space.
It's a safe
space.
Right now, well, I have a new position, right?
Okay.
That's been consuming a lot of my mental space, and I haven't been in a management position since my HIV days where I supervised.
Okay.
And I knew how to connect with my team.
Okay.
But again, this is a new world. I was hired virtually. Every interview was done virtually.
Ooh.
My team has not met me. So I'm like, and I apparently to my boss, he told me that the other day, he's like, you are moving at like 80 miles per hour. And he's like, and your team is moving at 10.
I need you to slow down.
So he was like, no, he wants the team to move at 80. I'm supposed to get them there, and I'm supposed to motivate them virtually. So it's been tough, and it's testing my leadership skills a lot. I know how to connect. I know how to be raw. I know how to be authentic. I had the beauty of dabbling in two worlds, right? I grew up in the Bronx. I went to high school in the South Bronx. I lived in foster care. I lived in every part of the Bronx. So I fought in the Bronx. Like I fought, all my craziest fights were in high school, like defending myself. So it's like I know how to relate. Like if you want me to be that person, like I could be Christopher in the Bronx. Like I could show you what's that about. But I also got educated at Columbia, so it's like I could be Christopher from Columbia. Like I could show you that too. Like what do you want me to be?
You're
like
co-checking yourself.
Like I know I'm that trilingual. My elocution hits different when depending on my audience, and so I know how to connect. I know how to be real, but it's been really difficult, and I don't want to just like tell them like, let me tell you who I am. It has to happen organically. It has to happen authentically. I want them to know like the reason why I do what I do, and it's really for the betterment of my community, because my projects are all to improve the Black community. It's to improve the health of the Hispanic community. So it's like, this is something that's close to me. Like I know what it's like to be at the bottom and not get the services you deserve. So we're here advocating and showing that this need is greatest in these communities.
Correct.
And that's what we're petitioning for. So that's my greatest motivator. But it's been difficult. It's been consuming. So when 5 o'clock Friday hits, I be out. Yeah. Like relieving all that stress, girl. So it's like that's something that has been consuming. I overindulge in running. Okay. Running is super meditative. I can walk 11 miles. I can walk 30 miles in a day. I can hike 19. I did it with my family, my adopted family in Scotland. So it's something that's super meditative, because when you're running, it's like you can't think about any stress. You're breathing. Like you are literally like, I have to breathe. I'm going to die. Yeah. So running is something I definitely overindulge in, because it's that meditative aspect to it, where you're only focused on your breathing. Okay. And your next step, because you're like, one foot in front of the other, like you're gonna get to the finish line. Just go. So running is a passion.
Yeah. I like that. First of all, I want to try hiking. My previous guest, Stephanie, she's been hiking, and so I've been thinking, yes, I want to do this. I'm a little scared, but I want to do it. I commend you while still trying to meet your goals with your team virtually. See, like the virtual shit is not just with the children; it's also with us too. Yeah. So I mean, it could be, it could be testing, but given what we know now about your entire journey and story, I'm pretty sure you got this, and I know you do. Thank you. Meditation is something I have been doing.
Oh, good.
I have been doing that in the mornings. I've been waking up. The other day, I write a little bit. I've been writing for a good number of years. So I started meditating early in the morning, and I started to write early in the morning this time.
Oh,
yes.
I write at night.
Yes. So I'm starting now the morning to see how I'm waking up, if it's in fact in high spirits or to get myself in high spirits. One last thought to that. I think I spoke about this 2 episodes ago with my good friend Shay, and I said, I have to get back into the swing of things, into the gym. I mean, in my clothes again, who knows, but neither here nor there. I have to get back into a whole swing of working out. Yes. Because work has been very stressful. We're going through changes. We're going through restructuring. Our team is trying and fighting the good fight with just keeping everyone safe and following policies and protocols with, COVID still present. And so it's been very stressful. So I'm trying really hard to get into a rhythm of working out, even if it is here at home. I do have tools here at home that I can use to work out.
But science, so sometimes you need to change the settings. So you have a backyard.
Right. I have a backyard, and I do have a very nice basement where I should probably
Yes.
go and just be by my damn self and do this.
Yes, change your
So
setting.
I wanted to make this rant on a more positive, and thank you for setting that tone, even with, like, a little challenge of overfacing. We might go back into virtual. We might go on a lockdown pretty soon. And before we hit into a panic, we are based here in New York City, and that is the talks here. I want to encourage everyone on this very raw rant, on this overdose, knowing what we know from the 3 months we were on pure fucking lockdown, and that this might happen again. Please start taking care of yourselves as of now. Like, if it's not enough to just say, and I said this before, to mask the fuck up, okay, fine, so be it. But start paying attention to your body, start paying attention to your mind, start paying attention to your spirit, your soul, and start taking care of yourself, because you do not want to go into an anxiety frenzy, into panic attacks, into depression. I mean, there's those things that I know sometimes we're like, oh, it's just like the 3 quickest seconds of our life, and it is, and you're probably then out of it. But you don't want those attacks, you don't want those anxieties, you don't want the depression, you don't want that. I wanted to take this moment on the overdose to make that very powerful to you guys. You guys know that I have a mini-sode series on Tuesdays evening, and it is a dose for the soul. And so I'm starting to take that platform for encouragement and for transparency on a different level, on a different dose. But I just wanted to put that here because to the essence of virtual learning, virtual home, foster children, foster homes, and us working from home or not working from home, the times are still trying for everyone, right? Yes. And so we just want to put it out there on a positive note to please take care of yourself.
I agree.
That's my whole overdose of this week.
No, like to tap into what you're saying about writing. So when I wasn't in therapy all these years in foster care, which I probably needed. And I finally, one of my good friends, he was like, I think you need therapy. And I finally went into therapy. We got into like a big argument. And I went into therapy, and she was like, wow, you're so like high functioning. So she diagnosed me with PTSD, childhood PTSD. And she's like, and I told her, she's like, well, what were you doing? And so I write. I have journals, Daisy, from like the 4th grade. So it's like, crazy. She was like, wow, like you wrote. And I was like, every feeling, like every misunderstanding episode or just like confusion I experienced, like, why is this happening, right? Like I would read this and I'm like, wow, like look at how perceptive this little girl was, like just really like I don't understand, like me talking to God in my diary. Beautiful. Like God, like what is the purpose of this? Like why am I going through this? Like tell me what I need to do, tell me how to be, tell me, and like please make me better, please make me smarter, please make me stronger. Like it was like all these like asking and requests to like have him on my back. So to those out there, before you hit this episode of complete lockdown, like, and to the foster children, like sometimes writing is such a huge relief. Absolutely. And I had, like I told you before, I had the protection of my high school boyfriend. So he would fight my battles. Like he is like my family. We've grown up together despite like us not being able to last. It's like, you're my family. Like you were there during my hardest times, like in the system. That's what kids need the most, especially during this lockdown. They need someone to protect them. If they're home, if the people in their home are not protecting them, sometimes it's the people in the street, it's your friends, it's your boyfriend, it's your partner, it's whoever out there representing like that extension of you. Like if something goes down in this house, like I have this extension of me that's gonna come in and back me up. So having Rudy as my high school boyfriend, it was like everyone knew like she has a boyfriend, like you can't touch her because he comes with heat, right? So I had that. So I was writing, I had that stability, which was my high school boyfriend. And then I had my friends, I had work. So even though now we're going in virtually, for those who are about to enter this new lockdown, it's just think of these ways to decompress. Because if you can't go to your boyfriend's house, if you can't go to your friend's house, it's going to be a lot harder for these children.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And these young adults.
Yeah.
in the system.
Yeah, it's very true. Everything you're saying is so true, and we just have to just be in tune with ourselves too. Like just be truthful to yourself of what you're feeling and what you're thinking, of what you're going through. There's one thing to see another pandemic wave. It's another the aftermath that happens, and so we just don't want it to continue or to be triggered again. It's just, you know, a call to action, just on a very personal and individual note, like just for all of you who's listening. I had a moment this week, and I am most likely, by the time you guys listen to this episode, you would have already heard A Dose for the Soul, and you're going to know what it's about, because it's exactly what I shared on that episode. Just a reflective moment for me. And you don't want a delayed reaction, essentially. You don't want that. So yeah, on that note, we have come to the end of the show. Yay! Yes, this was amazing to speak with you on, to highlight, to really dive deep into it. I commend you for sharing your story on this platform, because you did say before you wouldn't always talk about it. And so I thank you for doing that for me, for my audience. Again, you just never know who this will resonate with and who can relate. And so my hope is always with each and every episode that some way, somehow it touches someone heart.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm praying.
Yes. So Crystal, thank you so much. You guys already know I always say my guests are always gonna come back. And until this day, I usually have my guests come back, because I'm sure she's gonna come back.
I would definitely come back.
Yes.
And shoot the breeze.
Yes. Respectfully, do you want to tell my audience where they can find you or follow you if you like?
Yes. So my Instagram handle is CMV21100. That's my only platform of social media. I do have TikTok, but I'm not really like so active. TikTok is for me to like dance, because I love to dance. Like we were talking about dancing. Yes. I love to dance. Dancing is a form of like expression for me, and just releasing tension. So, but Instagram is the way to find me right now. I don't have Facebook.
I'll tag her handle in the show description, so you guys could check out Crystal, and y'all could, I mean, I'm going to share the post, the one, EPI blog challenge, but you guys will see. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. This is yet another week and another episode on Double Dose of Raw Talk podcast. I am your host, Miss C, and you guys will tune in next week. Bye.
Bye.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and we are streaming on all platforms. Check us out on Apple and Spotify, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Now let's talk about it.